Oh, hi. My name's Nicolette, but I prefer Nikki. Do you always say yes? Do you know why it's important to be able to say no? At least from time to time. Well, I do know now. Even though it's pretty embarrassing to confess what I did right now in front of all of you, I feel the need to tell you everything. Here's my story. When my parents, who happened to work together, got their job transfer and were forced to move to another city, I already knew that my life was going to be more complicated. I had to leave my besties and my boyfriend Nick here in my old city and my old school. Yeah, I know, it sounds a bit cliché, but I thought back then that we were meant to be together, especially given the fact that we had the same name. Lol. Anyway, I moved, and he was devastated and became super jealous, almost constantly texting me to ask about every step I took. I was really afraid to change my environment because of the new school and the fact that I had no friends and everything. But one of my girlfriends, Jess, saved me once she had introduced me to this guy she'd been to a music summer camp with. His name was Roger. I knew that he also lived in the city I was moving to. I was not the kind of girl who calls boys first to ask them to take her out. But by that time, I already spent 2 lame and lonely weeks in a new place. I just decided to take that risk away. What can I say? Roger made me laugh all the time and took me to a few interesting places, like an art gallery and a cafe where I tasted the best ice cream ever. He was a little bit older and good looking, so at some point I found myself interested in him. I mean, yes, I know I had Nick, and I didn't want to break up with him. It was just flirting between Roger and me, and nothing more, until he took me to one party. It was a birthday party of one of his friends, and as soon as we arrived, he began trying to flatter me, like he wanted something, more serious than just talk. I managed to escape to the balcony to grab some fresh air, and I saw a guy from my school. I knew that he was a year older than me and that his name was Alan. He probably didn't recognize me because he approached me and asked whether I was there alone. I pointed at Roger, who was making us some snacks. But for some reason, when Alan asked me if I had a boyfriend, I shook my head. We had a little chat during the party, and the next day at school, I was suddenly the one who went up and said hi. It didn't seem like I had something with Alan, right? It was just a movie night with no romance at all, and it was interesting to talk to someone who differed so much from me. I learned that he was in a garage band and played the bass, and he invited me to one of their performances during the upcoming weekend. He rode a motorcycle, which was really cool in my mind. But at the same time, we did have some things in common, and it seemed like he was also interested in what I was talking about. I don't know what was happening with me, whether it was my age or my new environment, or both, but I tried not to mention the other guys while talking to each of them. Even though I never thought of myself as a cheater, I didn't want to lose any of the 3 of them. It turned out to be pretty challenging to hide them all though, but I successfully managed to do it for a few months. Roger was sort of my guru in terms of socialization and the arts. Alan was a daredevil and made me feel free, and Nick was my good old boyfriend who knew me probably better than I knew myself, and I really missed him, and us. And the spring break came, along with my birthday. Nick promised to come and spend a few days with me, and I was pretty excited about that. I had already made myself safe, having told Roger and Alan that I was going to be out of town so that they wouldn't disturb Nick and I, but he cancelled everything at the last moment. Sadly, his mum broke her leg, and he had to stay at home and help her. This made me a little bit angry. I mean, of course, she didn't do it on purpose, but she could have let her son come and see his girlfriend. Gosh! I was so upset on the evening before my birthday that I changed my Facebook status to something about feeling lonely in a crowd, and the next morning I woke up to hearing someone beeping loudly outside of my house. It was my girlfriends. They saw my Facebook status, and after they found out that Nick was screwing me over, they decided to come and rescue me. We set off for the beach, and this birthday had every chance to magically transform from the worst birthday ever to the best in the universe. We were having so much fun and swimming, and then I noticed a guy. Well, technically, my girls were the first to notice him. They started giggling and winking at him, but for some strange reason, he decided to come up to me. His name was Eric. He was 5 years older than me, and he was really handsome. I think I might have fallen in love at first sight, or at least second sight. We spent the rest of the day together holding hands and hugging, and when my girlfriends were about to head back home, he kissed me. I knew that I was not going to see Eric again. This was probably the reason I let him kiss me. Or maybe I was inspired by the fact that it was my birthday. Or I could have been angry at Nick for not coming. I don't know. Of course, my girlfriends promised to keep that kiss a secret. A couple more weeks passed before Nick decided to surprise me and came to my place for just 2 days to see me. I tried to show how happy I was, but honestly, I was far from being happy. First of all, I had to call off hanging out with Roger, telling him that I was sick, and of course I had to manage to show Nick the city while avoiding any places where he could come across either Roger or Alan, which was way too difficult to do. At some point, we decided to grab some coffee and dropped in at the nearest coffee shop. And guess what? As bad luck would have it, Alan was there, accompanied by some other guys from his band. And yes, I had nothing else to do but to introduce them to each other. Oh, you should have been there to feel the tension between him and Nick that I felt. Of course, as soon as Nick and I sat down at the table, he began accusing me of dating Alan behind his back. I tried to be calm because, as you all know, nothing happened between us, and that probably gave me that strength to look Nick in the eyes while explaining everything. Finally, I managed to convince Nick and calm him down, and then I went to the bathroom. But here we go. I forgot my cell phone right there on the table. And you can be sure that Nick took his chance. Yep, he found a chat between Eric and I with photos from that beach day and everything. Do I really need to explain that that moment was a breaking point for our relationship? Of course Nick dumped me, as well as Alan, who was still there and heard everything. I was so angry that I blocked Eric everywhere on my cell. And Roger, well, later that day, he called me to ask how I was feeling. He thought that I was sick, remember? But at that point I was angry at every man on the planet, at him, and I was rude. He called me an ass and slammed the phone down. What can I say? Always think about the consequences of your own actions. And please, password protect your phones, people.